Hi, this is Janessa from Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're talking about the death of George Floyd. I have two guests on the line from the Reno Sparks NAACP, the president Patricia Gallimore and her husband Donald Gallimore, Wade Hawkins, a Los Angeles and South Korean teacher, and myself, who is a Master's of Political Science student. We also have several callers, including one prank caller. Please listen to the show and you'll love it.
You grew up in San Diego, and that's the area where
And I
it's
grew up
not
in San Diego.
racism.
And most of the worst
that
problems
type of.
are in the liberal cities.
Which one?
Yeah.
Los Angeles?
That's what I was.
Yeah.
Wade. What's up? That's what I was, a liberal hippie. But, yeah, but...
well, Pat doesn't know Wade, but by the way, Pat, Wade is an airline attendant, but he has a bachelor's in theater from USC, and he taught in Korea for 9 years.
Okay.
He's my former roommate, and we know each other from Hollywood Presbyterian. But Wade, what do you think specifically about? Minneapolis is a Midwestern city, which a lot of people have always considered state of the art. Like, we're big on culture, theater, and arts.
Mm-hmm.
They sink a lot of money in the. It's like they used to call it the Minneapolis. It was like the New York of the Midwest, and now it has a stain on it because of the Philando Castile murder a few years ago, and now this. And what do you think of protesters invading the 3rd precinct and setting it on fire and the police running home? Like, what do you think of these types of protests?
That's the place you should attack. I mean, I hate hearing, when I hear about just local businesses, like, why are you attacking local business? If you're mad at the police, go after the police. Oh, shoot, I'm going to get in trouble saying that. But, right, I mean, that's who the beast is with, right? And, so it makes more sense, like, this is your enemy. You're going to attack. Don't attack other people to try to get at your enemy. Attack your enemy. It makes sense.
You know what severely bothered me, you guys, is the first night of protests, the protesters hadn't even done anything, and the cops were on the roof of the precinct with rubber bullet guns and the chemical spray that burns people's eyes. Like, they were ready for the fight, and they were going to fight dirty. It wasn't going to be ever a peaceful protest. Anybody can go now. Don't worry about hogging the floor.
From their perspective, it makes sense too. I mean, it's like they're like, okay, people are coming for us. Let's be ready.
Well, I guess they felt like they were on the defense because about 100 protesters found out where that Derek Chauvin lived, and they stood in front of his house, and he tried to order 3 delivery food trucks, and they wouldn't let the delivery food people in the house. And then today, there was like 50 police officers guarding his house.
Yeah, I do want to agree with something Don said. He was talking about local police. I was researching something where, at one point they decided to centralize it, and my opinion of centralizing things is always... So Don was pointing out earlier when I got on the phone about how the police should be local. And yes, I think we would be in huge agreement on that. When the police are part of the community, they're, then be there to defend your community. Don't send police into other communities. Have police there to defend their community.
Yeah, and Don was talking about the community relations that him and Pat have established with their local police, which I think is state of the art.
Yeah, Don was also talking about community policing, which was in President Obama's 21st Century Task Force and policing that he had put into place. And basically, it's where there's a relationship and attachment with the police and law enforcement in the community, which means that we are one, right? And it's a big deal because if you're a cop, if you have a police officer living in the same neighborhood and you guys are neighbors, you guys know each other and you have a relationship.
Yep.
Me and the chief of police, Jason Soto, I have his cell number. Okay, I can call him if there's an issue, but I respect the boundaries. But if me being a former past president of the NAACP as well as now a second vice president, those are the relationships that we build. So when they're looking for law enforcement, you want your community to in terms of your law enforcement, to also reflect your community. So you want African Americans on that force, you want Filipinos, you want Asians, you want everybody, Latinos, you want everybody on law enforcement. And when they're meeting, as a matter of fact, I got an email from his office today asking us to have a Zoom call in regards to all the things that are happening within the nation, not here in this community, but around. So we can have a roundtable. We're going to sit there. We're going to discuss and say, and talk about what happened and why it happened or why we think it didn't happen or what went wrong there, because that can only make our community here better. I'm all about change. I am a little bit, I've seen the Watts riots. I lived down the street when that happened. We didn't live when they had the 1992 riots or whenever it was in Los Angeles. I'm from Southern California. I live in South Central LA. So, yeah, the reason I've always been involved in civil rights, I was born in to speak with, when I speak, it is with a passion. When we talk about the disconnect, and as I was saying, it wasn't a dig at anyone. There is a disconnect in the community, as if it wasn't between law enforcement and the people, or this would not have occurred. And I understand this, not everybody's racist. Hell, I'm racist. I'll say it straight up. I have some racism in me as well. But I'm born into it. We all have somewhat of a little bit of racism, and I don't have a problem with stating that. If you know that, then you can educate yourself and be able to live in that world and live with other individuals. As I said, being an African-American female, being an African-American, period, I was very, very privileged growing up. Okay, so I understand both sides of it, and I look at it, with a lens. And when I see this happening and it occurring, and it keeps occurring over and over and over with my African-American and my black brothers and sisters, it's very, very scary when I have 4 kids and I have 6 grandchildren, and after that, it's going on into the future. And this is something that's not new in this nation. And we have to recognize it. We have to recognize it, and we have to look at it for what it is. And we can go get statistical data. We can go look at all the trends. We can change the name. But, we have to look at it. And at some point, we have to say, okay, when's enough enough? And I have to say the individual that's in leadership right now is really fueling some of this as well, because with that individual being in leadership and being the leader of our country and some of the things that he said.
You mean Donald Trump?
Yeah, I can't say his name, sorry, but yeah, I'll agree with what you just said.
Okay.
And the way that he speaks, and if you don't think that's hatred, I don't know what is, okay? And it's not just geared toward African Americans. I won't say that, but it has spawned and brought out things in people to say that it's okay. When you have, saying it's okay, and I don't care what people say or whatever, they can say whatever they want to say about President Obama. We didn't have that, okay? There's a whole different climate, and I can feel it, and I know others can feel it as well. And we've kind of, there's a little thing right now with the NAACP, our little saying is that enough is enough. We're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to take it anymore.
One thing that
go ahead.
we do have a caller, I think, from St. Louis, but one thing that was surprisingly good that happened this week is I took a second job in another group home, and I was working with he called himself a patriot. He owns 19 guns. But when he talked about George Floyd, he was very honest. He said, that man was killed in broad daylight. Like, he didn't mince it. He didn't try to defend law enforcement. And there were several other, now I know this may sound cheesy to Pat, but there were several other, I'm up here way by Lake Superior where, there's not a big, I'd say the black presence up here is maybe 1 out of every 30 people. So other white people to come forward that live like in lake property in rural areas and defend the atrocity of this crime was really a positive sign for me. As trivial as it sounds to other people, but it was a positive sign. But I do like what you said about Los Angeles and the fabric of, like, growing up in L.A., several of my friends were in the Rodney King riots, and the police did not come for days, and their lives were threatened, all my friends of all different colors. And we've done several shows on that era, plus the Daryl Gates era, where he endorsed the chokehold method, which ended up costing the city a lot of money through lawsuits. We've covered a lot of these topics over and over, and Pat's right. It is disheartening when you see it happening again and again. And with that, I'm going to take in this caller. I think it might be someone we know usually. Who's calling from the 313?
Hello, my name is Joel.
Hi, Joel. What city are you calling from?
I'm currently calling from Detroit right now, but, you know,
Okay.
I've been around a lot. You know, I was born and raised in West Philadelphia, and I've mainly gone between Bel Air and West Philadelphia. You know, this is the story all about how, you know, my life kind of got flipped and turned upside down. And especially when it came to, you know, George Floyd, it really has been turned upside down, especially living in Detroit. You know, it's not as bad as Minneapolis, but it's starting to escalate to the point of Minneapolis, you know?
You mean the protests?
Yeah, the protests.
Well,
Okay, so
Detroit-
when you say that you
Detroit-
vacillated between Pennsylvania and Michigan, are you trying to say your life has been affected by racism?
No. I'm saying I've been between West Philadelphia, which is, in West Philadelphia, it's mainly full of a lot of Italians and stuff, right? And in Bel Air, because I used to go to Bel Air for a lot of business trips because I work for an IT company, you know, and I have to go out to Silicon Valley a lot, and most of the time they would get me hotels in the Bel Air area of LA, right? And it was just a really big culture shock because growing up in this predominantly white Italian neighborhood, you know, I would go out to LA, right? And it would just mainly be, you know, a lot of people begging, like people of color, you know, and it was just really a big shock to me because, you know, in West Philadelphia, I was mainly taught that only white people were poor and white people were only struggling. And, you know, I would spend most of my days on the playground, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and shooting some b-ball outside of the school, you know. Even though West Philadelphia has a pretty big black population, like, it's very separated, you know. Everyone has their own culture groups. But in Bel Air, everyone just kind of merges together, and it's predominantly black.
Hey, by the way, all four of us on the phone tonight, Don, Pat, Wade, and I have all lived in L.A. for long periods of time, so...
Yeah, I know.
One thing I wanted to ask you is there's a lot of homelessness there, but in Bel Air where you were staying, there's people of many cultures, including Middle Eastern.
Yeah, I know that, but it's just mainly I've never really seen a big concentrated group of people of color. Like I just said people of color. I wasn't talking about mainly black people, and I just really saw these people of color struggling in these major cities. Like Philadelphia is a major city, but it's nothing comparable to LA and stuff like that. And with these Minneapolis riots going on, you know, it's just like with it seeing escalating, especially right now, I'm chilling in Detroit, you know, it's just I might as well put my Walkman on and might as well
Is it
kick
frightening to
it,
you
know?
or surprising?
It's surprising. It's not frightening me. Like people struggling isn't gonna scare me, you know, and I sympathize with them, you know. It's just really hard to, you know, be afraid of a movement against, you know, an evil action, you know. I get why the officer did it. I get why I get why the officer did it.
Why do
Yeah,
you? Why do you think he had to hold his neck down for 8 minutes with his knee?
I get
the
why
guy was
he did it.
already
I'm not saying it's a
handcuffed.
good thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I get why he did it, but definitely I think people should get change, you know. this police department clearly needs to be looked in, so that a couple of guys that are up to no good can't start making trouble in neighborhoods, especially cops, you know?
Well, that's what happened in Ferguson. Obama ordered a federal study to be done, and they found out that black people, over 75% of the city revenue came from oppressing people with traffic violations and harassing them, and a lot of things were discovered. Also, there was a federal task force when Tamir Rice got killed in Cleveland, and there were major changes done to those police departments. So I'm hoping the same thing will happen.
Do you honestly think our current president is going to step in and do that? No, he's just going to call in National Guard if the governor won't, which I'm pretty sure he has.
Well, Governor Walz in Minnesota just called in the National Guard already. They arrived this evening.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're not going to do anything.
Well, all I know is, like I was telling Pat, because I'm from Minnesota and I lived in Minneapolis several years, I do think that it was an unusual place for it to happen, but it only takes one person with poor decision-making as law enforcement to ruin it for everybody. And now we have another caller from the 585. Who's the area
Just one
code,
moment.
please?
I just got to say one more thing, though.
Yeah, you can keep
niggers are going to
talking.
get
We just
mad,
have a
then
lot
they
of
can have their
callers.
neck stomped in. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, fuck niggers, white power, you know?
Ooh.
You guys, I already knew that guy from the minute he called was a phony, because he said that the only white people he ever heard of, the only people he ever heard of were poor, were white people. Like, what? Why do people have to? This is what's fucking wrong with this country. Is that caller just now? And by the way, there's only like 2 hotels in Bel Air, so I already kind of knew he was full of shit.
No, but you're not getting it. You still don't get it. That's the norm rather than the exception, James. That's why we're in this situation in the first place. That is the norm. That's why we have gated communities. That's why we have redlining. That's why we have these high home prices to keep people who are not financially acceptable out. This is a norm, Jane. You don't understand still. You don't
Well, for someone who's idealistic like me, it's depressing to know that there's more than maybe 5% of Americans who behave like that. But I want to find out who this caller is from the 585.
No.
Wait, John.
95% of Americans feel that way.
Okay.
No,
I disagree, Don. I think it's under 30%. Can we ask who this? Hi, this is Jane from Blog Talk Radio, Political Gravity. We have 5 callers on the line. What's your name?
Yep. My name is
Jim Stenson.
Your name is what?
Jim Stenson.
Okay, hi, Jim. What's going on? We'd like to hear your opinion on what's going on in Minneapolis.
Personally,
I
it
think
is
I muted you by
sorry.
mistake because I have 2 guest callers.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. My take on the Indianapolis situation is, Minneapolis is, they're doing an okay stance of protesting because, personally, it's an unjust killing. The man was brutally killed, practically. I don't think that many of the protesters should be pretty much reliving what happened in the 90s, if you know, like, about the LA riots.
Correct?
Correct. I don't want them to keep doing that. I want them to do more of a peaceful protest, you know, still taking a stance, you know, providing the justice that is needed, you know, the cop being brought to justice for the unjustified killing. But I don't think they should be running around and breaking into people's stores and stuff. I don't think they should be doing that.
I know. I feel like I have friends who were at the ground zero of that protest last night, and they said that there was only a handful of people, maybe like 10% out of the 100% that were acting violently and ransacking stores. But on the first night, they said they were some of those people who became violent were provoked by police rubber bullets and tear gas. And by the way, we still have a 585 caller who I have not brought in, but go ahead and talk 313 till you get your points made.
All right. Provoked, yes. It can be shown that the individuals may have been provoked by a police presence due to the rubber bullets and tear gas being thrown at them. But what can cause the reaction of the police throwing tear gas and shooting rubber bullets at the protesters? Them being violent
I think
at the protest.
That's what we were talking about earlier. The police took a defensive stand before people could even begin to protest. They were already on the roof of the police precinct with guns and rubber bullets. Like, it seemed like it was going to be a war from the minute it started. Secondly, we have
true.
the mayor of St. Paul is black. His name is Melvin Carter. The Minneapolis police chief is black. The mayor is not black. He's a Virginia retransplant named Jacob Fry. But it does seem like in this case no one listened to authority figures.
It's shown. Personally, I think that the protesters in Minneapolis should take a more peaceful stance. And the
I'm
police
hoping that will
officer,
happen. I thought maybe it would blow over after 48 hours.
It'll
Yeah.
blow over after 72 hours, and there is no such thing as a peaceful stance anymore. African Americans have been peaceful stancing for 400 years now, and it's pretty much over. What we're trying to do as African Americans is make this as peaceful as we can. 16 stores, 16 stores at a police station are minimal collateral damage.
Don, there's been about 15 more stores burned since then. They moved into the Midway area between St. Paul and Minneapolis, and now all 30 Target stores are on lockdown, and like 16 Walmart stores.
That's all right. They have the money from all the profits they've been deriving from the African American community, so they can with their insurance policies, they'll be all right.
All right.
Can I jump in?
We have a
Can I jump
caller
in here
from
real
the
quick?
585. Could you at least introduce yourself?
Yeah, you can call me John. My name is John. But I want to jump in here real quick. I can't believe you guys are all making this about race. I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous. Somebody a minute ago even blamed the president for this, saying that the president caused this to happen. How the hell can you say something like that? Police brutality was at its highest peak when Obama was president. Now, let's forget about the fact that the police, I agree that there's been a lot of videos that has been escalating, showing that police attack and kill black people, but it's not just blacks. They also kill white. It's beyond race. It's beyond. If you guys get out your mind and your race stupidness, you will see that this is an issue about police ego. It's the police. They got an ego. You can't argue with a cop. If you argue that, they escalate it even farther. And what makes it crazy is they have the ability to kill you. So when you
did you know that George Floyd did not resist arrest? They released 3 different camera angles. He did not resist arrest.
We know that, Jane.
But this guy on the line might not know that.
Well,
I do know this, and he did a little bit resist arrest. But that's not my point. The point is the fact that the police officers are just, they have this mentality that whatever they say goes. It doesn't matter your race, your sex, or anything. I've seen police videos where a police officer took an old lady, 80 years old, and body slammed her in the parking lot of a Walmart.
Yep.
And she was white.
It doesn't matter your race, your age, your sex. When you're given that much power, you're going to abuse it. Period. And that's why this is happening so much. The solution to all this is we need to find a way to police the police. Period. I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
a good
just
point.
really
And,
pissed about this.
No, but
you didn't mention where you were calling from or your name.
My name is John. I'm from upstate New York, and I'm glad that the riot is happening. I hope they burn the whole fucking city down. To stop this crap, it needs to be done because peace is not working. Peace is not working. There's so many peaceful protests that doesn't go anywhere. It's time to say, hey, wait a second. We can't take it anymore and just burn the whole fucking city down if need be. I'm sorry for cursing. You can take over. My bad.
I'm kind of proud of your bravery. And by the way, they burned down the police. They burned down most of the 3rd precinct tonight in Minneapolis.
Jay,
They took it over and burned it.
You sound like you hear me. I guess not.
Yeah, we can hear you, Don. Go ahead.
No, John is right. And a lot of what he just said. This is not to officers or former officers Kalinsky or whatever his name is. He wasn't necessarily doing that because the gentleman was black. He was doing it because he thought he had the power to do it. And that's the main reason that he had his knee on this guy's neck with his hands in his pocket for more stability on his neck and more or less touting the cameras that he had this power. That's what ultimately it is in some of the long run, the figures. But in a lot of instances, it is going after a person of a particular race. Because that's a moniker, that's a notch on their gun, that's another ribbon on their bed. And so that's, it's a combination of all of what John just said. And the gentleman before him, what was his name? What's your name, sir? Because is he gone? But anyway, because seemed like he was taking offense to the fact that progress is, it's kind of being made again. We're going back to the old way of doing things, just like we're getting ready to send another spaceship up after a decade. It takes people time to get their feet back on the ground, but this is going to possibly be a prelude, a trial run practice for what may be in store for the rest of some of the large portions of the country.
I could point out, well, as far as collateral damage, I know it's a term like in war where, innocent bystanders get hurt or, there's other people. But when you talk about handling things in a moral way, collateral damage is something should only be, shouldn't, you try for it not to exist, and you certainly don't have it on purpose. So I totally get burning down the precinct. I don't get, let's attack this grocery store. Like, if the grocery store wasn't part of what they're mad at, you don't attack
they're mad at
somebody.
They're mad at the grocery store owner that called the police in the first place over a forged $20 bill.
Okay, then that makes more sense, but not like, here's a store, let's burn it down. You anytime you want to fight something, you focus on what your opponent is. You don't make it everybody else, because then you just make everybody else mad at you, and you lose a lot of support.
Good point, Wade. Do you have any more comments, John?
The thing is, sometimes a peaceful protest is quiet. Nobody hears you because you're not making anything to make a controversy, something that's shouting. And doing this is shouting, letting the whole world, not just that city, the whole country, and hopefully the whole world see this stuff. But if you're protesting really quiet, nobody hears you. Sometimes you have to do things like this to make your point across, period. And then real quick about President Trump, again, one last thing, and then I'm going to let out. This year, the past couple of years, a lot of people have been let out of prison. Majority of them are black. Why? Because Trump did it. Trump worked with Kanye West to get black people out of prisons for crimes of the past. For instance, marijuana. The laws of marijuana have changed from the laws before. If you had a pound of marijuana, that was a felony way back in the days. It's not like that anymore. But President Trump worked with Kanye West to change the rules. That's why you're seeing more and more people let out of prisons. So this whole thing about Trump being a racist, let's end that right now. And this whole thing about police brutality against just a specific race is okay. I mean, I'm cool with the Black Lives Matter movement, but just understand that they kill more than just black people. And that police officer was not all of them were white. And if you look carefully at the video, there was an Asian person in there too, and he was just as dumb as the other three. Thank you for having me on your show.
That's true. He stood there and did nothing.
Yeah, some good points. And I agree with him that sometimes peaceful protest isn't enough. What you don't do is you don't purposely